Merry Meetle. Bit of a different vlog today. It is still Imbolc, but we're getting close to the vernal equinox, which will mean the frost will be gone and my plants will be safe. Especially where I'm at, it's just so frosty. But obviously this is not a botanical post. This is actually a very quick post, planning it to be a very quick post. I wanted to post a few tips, a few things that I do which make my gardening adventures in crochet like swim along very quickly. And so what are they? Okay. And also I'm going to do a very quick update on how I'm going with my crochet along skinny scarf. So the week 1 we got the materials, we did the first 2 squares. So let's just finish that off before we do the crochet tips. So week 3, basically all you're doing is crocheting the center motif, the granny square. You're just crocheting another 20, and that's all you do on week 2. And then on week 3 we'll do the next round, and then week 4 we do the final round, but we actually crochet them together as you go. And then week 5 we do an edge, a bordering edge. So I will add a link to the crochet along of the skinny granny square scarf. I really like, you know, when it's been a long winter, and if you're in a place that is frosty, and you know most of the time of the year it's just grey and cold, there's nothing like these sorts of colours just to make you feel happy. So this is intentional for spring. And the other thing too is, like, even when the weather's warmer where I'm at night it's just sometimes it's still freaking cold even if there's no frost. Anyway, enough of that. I'll add a link. So here is crochet tips. Oh, before I do the crochet tips, so I've been playing with doing the matching coat. And so basically this is the colouring. So this would be the scarf, this would be the coat, and I've worked on my first 2 squares, slightly different sizing on spacing, but the same crochet hook size. This will take a while, so partly because I have so many other things that I'm doing as well. But this is actually a granny square bum bag that I'm working on to actually go with this. So in the series, so basically we'll have this sort of colouring, and there will be another colour added, which will be a silver or a light grey. And anyway, so I wanted, one thing I really hate about crochet bags, about some crochet bags, is if they're flimsy and they're floppy. That drives me nuts. When I have a bag, I'm going to line these bags, but when I have a bag I want it to be solid, not like a flippy woppy and too stretchy, unless it's a market bag. I mean, that's different for purpose, isn't it? So I've done my main squares for the bum bag, and then I've created a flap. Now originally I was actually going to do the colouring to match the square underneath, but I thought, no, I like having the stark difference, you know what I mean? So anyway, next I'm going to do the strap, which you can use as a crossbody bag, but I also want an option that it can be around the waist, which will mean that you don't want a strap so big. So I've got a couple of ideas. We'll see how I go with that. But you know, I like this nice firm fabric. I don't want it to be, you know, drapey and soft like I've got the scarf or the coat. Anyway, so there's that. Now we can get on to the tips. Okay, tips. Okay, what are my tips? So scrap garn. Okay, so what I actually do with my scrap garns, I just had a ball of garn that threw it, sort of landed in there. Don't know how, but anyway. So scrap garns are of two different types. Okay, so you've got the scrap garn, which is long enough to be used for something, but not long enough to wind into like a mini ball like that. So that's one type of scrap garn, and the other type of scrap garn is you got very small ends, so you know the ends you've trimmed off as you would with like granny squares once you've secured them. And I basically put them in a mason jar. Why? Okay, so with these sorts of sizes here, at the end of a year or 6-month period, when I've built up a whole lot, ooh, how did these two skinny winnies get in there? They go in the mason jar. Yeah, my morning coffee cup. Then I like to do something with a project that requires short scraps. You can do pom-poms, you can do a scrap garment, just like a scrap sweater, scrap whatever. But the other thing I wanted to do as well is a like a rag rug, but with scrap garn. But anyway, I think this is a good idea to basically just keep stashing them away. One little tip though, I would make sure to put the same type of garn. I tend to go through phases where I'm using the same kind of garn for like literally a year. And then, so I'm using this bulky and worsted weight 4.5 to 5 millimeter garn. And then, next year it will just be all DK 4 millimeter recommended hook size or needle size garn. And then the year after it will be all fluffy, everything's fluffy. And the year after everything will be fox fur. So I tend to go through these phases, but if you tend to use different things all the time, you can actually just have a few tubs for different and just label at the front, your DKs, your worsted and slight bulky weights, etc., etc. So I would separate them like that. And then with the really short, it's just so easy to just have your mason jar out. And am I going to sneeze? No, I'm not going to sneeze. Have your mason jar out where you can just literally as you're working and you're snipping off little bits after you've secured your squares or whatever you're working on, just throw it in there. It's better than running around afterwards trying to pick up lots of bits of little yarn pieces off your carpet, or save yourself the hassle. So with this type of garn, there is actually quite a few things you can do. Probably the most popular thing I've seen is people actually making new yarn out of, combining lots of pieces. But I actually personally, I like to use it as a filler. So for making whatever that needs to be filled. Now, I'm going to say something. I never have made animals, stuffed animals. And it's something I want to do, and I'm actually doing now, and I'm going to share that on the next garn post. And I'm going to use all my garn. This is literally 3 months worth. Actually, no, that's a lie. 2 months worth or 1 month worth, one to 2 months worth. Like, it wouldn't be more than that. Yeah, I've been really busting through my garn. These are 600ml mason jars. Hang on, oh my god, I've got it right. 600ml. And where I'm up to. But yeah, so that's how I'm going to use my scraps. So as you can imagine, when the jar gets really full, you can use it then, or you can put it into a, another container with just a really short scraps. With the really short scraps, you don't really need to put them with yarn, especially if you're using them as filler. Having a mixed type of yarn fibre is fine if you're using it as fill, but if you're making another garn, well, even then it might be fine. You might have some freaky new garn that's made up of all different types of fibres. Whatever. Sky's the limit on creativity. So another thing people are different. For me personally, I like seeing things that I'm working with. I'm more motivated to do things and get things done if they're presented and I can see them. If they're tucked away in a shelf somewhere, or you know, I'm less likely to just whip things out and get things done. But that's just me. So I love using mason jars. I also find them really handy for granny squares. So if you're doing a project that requires a lot of granny squares, I love to create a whole stash of center motifs, or even if you're doing motifs, so if you're doing, you know, shapes, you just do all the centers first and you put them in a jar. So what I usually do is I'll whip them all up. So like here I've got 12 skies in Sky Garn, in a USA style garn. I like to measure them out, so I always have what I need and don't have too many or too little, you know, I have exactly. So I like to just whip them all up, and then what I do is, as I, you know, secure the center, I'm one of these people that I've never really liked doing magic squares. I don't know, there's a lot of people probably think that's blasphemous, but oh well. I don't really like them. I can't get away from doing the 4 chain, joining the last chain to the beginning stitch in a slip, and then crocheting the, you know, the double crochet or whatever you're doing around that center with a long tail, and then pulling that tail through and securing it through. I feel like it's a lot more sturdier. I don't know, it's just me. And I also like the little raised centers that you get when you tie it through like that with a garn needle. But anyway, so in my method of madness, I like to crochet the desired amount of centers, and then as I go through and secure and tie them off, then I put them in the jar. And I know this jar is complete. All I need to do is start going through my rounds. This sky jar, this is for the coat, and this jar here is for my skinny scarf. I'm aiming to finish it this week, even though the crochet along will go over a few more weeks for other people. What else? So mason jars. Another little tip with using mason jars is get some masking tape or a pen and write down your hook size and the garn that you've used. Why? If you're anything like me and everything's nuts balls, and I wrote 4 and then I went 3 and then I changed to 5 because it was something else. Life for me is pretty crazy. I've got a lot going on. Everything's going dandy, dandy, and then boom, my cat starts puking up on the carpet, and then boom, one of my aquariums are not looking too good, and then boom, one of my ducks decides that he's just going to pick on one girl all the time, and she ends up looking like Friar Tuck because he's pulled the feathers out of her noggin by riding her all the time. And then booms, a neighbor's dog is going off, and just life. And then I go back to my project, and there's this moment of panic of, what square is this for? Is this square for this, or is this square for that? Yeah? So, if you label, you know. The other thing I like to do is, with a granny square, I like to write down if I've got a chain 1 or a chain 2 corner. Very important, because a lot of the different projects I do, some have a 1 chain corner, some have a 2 chain corner, some have a 3 chain corner, different hook size with the same garn, just depending on what the project is. And if I don't write that down, again, life takes me off, and then I'm like, oh, where was I? So I write it down. I do have a project journal, but you know what? Again, like it's just, I have to pull it out, and it's easier for me to do things like this and remember that. And then, so here's my label. See, I've been practicing what I preach. My 5mm hook with chain 1 corners, because this is for the same collection. So 3 mason jars. So basically just using mason jars to store your working crochet centers. I find myself personally, I find that I get my projects done a lot quicker. Is say I need 48 granny square centers. If I smash out those center 48 granny squares and tie them off and secure them, my work is a lot quicker in doing that. And you know, they're mindless. You sort of just do the centers whilst you're doing something else, which is something I'm always doing. I'm always multitasking. And then bang, you know, I find if I was to do a granny square from the center out, for every square of a large project, I'll be there for days, I'll be there for weeks, possibly months, doing it like this, easy. And then you can put a lid on it so no dust gets in there, and then you can file it in your workspace for when you're ready to do the next rounds. Now, if you're working with, so as an example, there's 20 granny square centers, 20 because I've already got 2 done on the actual scarf. So really, one of these jars will hold about 60 centers. This coat is going to just fit all my squares that I want. Pushing it down a little bit will be more than 60. I reckon it'll be about 78. Where else at? But if you're doing the second round of the square, it might not fit all them all, of course, unless it's only something that requires 4 squares. I mean, that's easy. But you can always use a giant jar. You know, you can use a bigger jar. There's so many big jars. You can get even cereal box jars, pasta jars. You know, you can really go to town and have a lot of fun. And I just think, isn't that that's just the cutest? I think that's the cutest, having jars of granny squares. I mean, forget lollies. Just jars of granny squares. Anyway, so that's in doing granny squares and scraps. And the last tip, okay, I've got a project journal. However, I don't know what it's tucked away, and my fishies are watching me. Hello Nix. I love index cards. I'm a book nerd, so it probably suits my personality type. I've got a library in the den where I have the flat screen. I don't watch TV, but I'll play something in the background like Game of Thrones or whatever box set I've got, and I will read. So the entertainment becomes mindless in the background as I read. I live on my own. I've got a lot of animals and noise that way, but I don't know, sometimes it's nice to hear other people talking and that sort of background noise, and I'll read. You know, I'll lie on the sofa and I'll read as I've got something in the background. I'm a bit weird, but anyway, I love index cards. In my apothecary, I have got, I've probably got about 12 mini cabinets full of index cards of all my books, all my PDF files, all my books scanned to PDF, everything. I catalogue everything. I probably should have been a librarian. And I also do with quick recipes such as incense mixes and, you know, that sort of thing, tinctures, concoctions. I have index cards used as recipe cards as well. So this is kind of an extension from that. And also I do learning cards. So when I'm studying, I'm always studying something. I always do cheat cards, and anyway, I use index cards. Now my battery is flashing, so I'm going to make this quick. So when it comes to doing a project, a whip, I put the date. I put what the pattern is, who it's by. I write down what cast on I've used, what hook I used, what garn I used, and any notes. And I keep this damn card with my whip. And when I pull out that whip, I've got that card there. I don't have to rely on my aging memory or having a clear head and pulling out a journal every time. my card's right there. And the beauty about doing this is you can then file this card for later, and you can actually make any notes at the end. I would do this different, I didn't like this, I you know, whatever the notes are, and then you can file it away, and then boom, when you go to do that project again, or someone asks or whatever, you've got it there. Isn't that awesome? And then before you know it, you have a whole series of index cards of projects that you can file away, that you've got filed away. You never have to rely on going through bulky books. It's all there. So anyway, index cards, filing your current WIPs. When they're complete, you can file them away, go back to them later with any notes that you've made, and keep your filing card with your WIP until it's complete. Then you're going to file it away. So that is my crochet tips in this, and I have got a few current WIPs. I got a couple of completes, and we're going into the woods, and my cat is sleeping on what are basically my fox heads. Her last name is Fox, Ravenmor Fox. So the fact she's now sleeping across an orange fox and a silver blonde fox is quite cute. Oh, days, and mushrooms and evergreen trees. So I'm getting together some crochet projects to put in my bedroom, and when I finish doing a couple of more fabrics for that, I will do another vlog, a Garn vlog on my current WIPs outside of this crochet pattern series, and also a couple of completes. Blessed be Mary Part. Now usually I like a lot of light in doing recordings, but everything's been grey here, so we got what we got. So you've got, even though it's the middle of the day, you've got a darkened vlog with a desk lamp. And I don't know, kind of suits the mood anyway. Blessed be Mary Part, and I hope you're all keeping safe and sane, more sane than safe. And I hope you're being creative and busy and not getting too distracted with all the horse shit that's out there at the moment. I don't know, the world keeps getting crazier, doesn't it? Anyway, blessed be and Mary Part. You need to say goodbye, Shah? You say bye to the Jubies. You're sleeping on the fox heads? I reckon you're going to steal my fox heads when I finish them. They're going to become your new soft toys, which means I'm going to probably have to mount them on the wall.